We're joined now by Chris Spielman, Spielman and Hooley in the morning. Chris, this is an ugly story. It's difficult. Your initial reaction to everything that you've had to digest in learning about this story and where it stands with Urban Meyer.
Well, first of all, at least from what and I agree with you both. I mean, we can only right now make an opinion on the information that's available to us. And that's what we get paid to do. We make opinions on the information that's available to us. Matt, I know you have a daughter and a wife. Stan, I know you have a wife. I don't know if you have a daughter, Stan, or
he
not.
He does. Jazz. Yep.
Yeah. So you understand that as a father and as a husband, what Courtney Smith, I guess, allegedly endured, but the pictures are hard to argue with.
Yep.
What she endured is awful. And there's nothing, I think, and never lay your hands on a woman, no matter what the case or the situation. I think we all can agree with that. A disclaimer is that Urban and Shelley are friends of mine, and I am with Stan on this. I give my friends and people that I've known for a lot of years the benefit of the doubt. And right now, until Urban, Gene, Ohio State makes a statement, I take Urban for his word at what he said at the press conference, because I have no reason, and I went through a situation where my son was accused of 9 felonies, and he got a misdemeanor for throwing dirt on a guy. So who knows what's being said? I just know this. I know that I have to, before we make any judgment on whether he should be fired or not fired, we have to give the man a chance and Ohio State a chance to respond. And there hasn't been that ability, or they have yet to respond. And so until we get all the information, I don't know if you can make a judgment on whether he should be fired or not fired.
Do you think today, Chris, and, it's 4 o'clock, this story broke about 10 o'clock, that does Ohio State, in your mind, need to say something?
Well, I think so. Don't you?
Yeah, I do. I posted on Twitter. I need some kind of an explanation. The silence isn't going to fly for me.
Right.
I feel they got to say something.
Well, I think the reports out there is that they're meeting now, correct? Is that
there are reports, yes, that Gene and Urban are having a meeting, and there's also reports that there may be some kind of a press conference later today. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to respond to what's being said about you, and if your truth is your truth, and Urban's got to stand up and say what I said was true. Like I said, and like Stan said, I'm with you, Stan. You're innocent until you're proven guilty. And the only statement that we have from Coach Meyer on this situation is what his statement was at the Big Ten meeting. That's what we know right now. Now, does it? Then all this stuff came out today. Then you have to respond to that, because you have to. That's what you're being questioned on, what you knew and you didn't know, and then whatever that case may be, that's what it'll be. But it's tough to sit here and say fire the guy, don't fire the guy, without him having a chance to answer this question. Would you guys agree with that?
Yes. And would you agree with this? Because Stan mentioned this, and we talked about it earlier. Because I felt like when we first got on the air, we were arguing, even though I think we were both on the same page, but misreading each other. But if like Stan was saying, no, you can't fire him today. And I feel like I was doing a lousy job. I wasn't saying that Urban should be fired today. I was saying that if we find out that he knew about this and was harboring somebody that had this history, and if that is proven that he knew about it and didn't do anything about it, I was saying, and Stan agreed with me when I reclarified, that that is a fireable offense. That could bring Urban Meyer down. Do you agree with that?
I mean, I think because of the nature of the situation, I think that obviously it could be looked at as a fireable offense of not letting Zach go sooner. I think that's something that, has to play out. I think Ohio State owes it to itself to do an independent investigation also.
Right.
And to figure out, okay, because, we're getting all this information, and that, not only is it alleged that Coach Meyer knew, but all the assistant coaches' wives knew, right? I mean, I believe.
Yeah, she was texting other assistant coaches' wives. Yep.
Yeah. And so, I think that, but we also have to know that, you have to give these guys a chance to respond before you sit there and drop the guillotine on everybody. And then an investigation is probably to come and follow. And then, you have to look at everybody involved at the university and at the athletic department, and you got to figure out what's the right thing to do instead of constant in Ohio State as a whole. Seems to constantly fight everything, and sometimes they're wrong, and they have to admit that they're wrong, and they have to step up and do what they think is due. And so, the right thing is to see this through and do your own investigation, so you have your own facts. Then that needs to be the case. And so, only time's going to tell, but we certainly owe it to Urban and Ohio State to respond. Ms. Smith has had her say, and it seems very, very credible. I'm not saying she made anything up. It looks credible. I believe her. Now it comes down to the situation, what was done about it and what should have been done about it, and you go from there, and you make your decision based off of that.
One of the stories that Urban Meyer, and we're visiting with Chris Spielman and Hooley weekday mornings, one of the stories that Urban has always told at his wake about Coach Meyer, about Coach Bruce, was that one of the lessons that he learned was never give up on a player. And he even told the story about one player at Colorado State that he was fed up with and went to Earl and said, I can't coach this guy anymore. And Earl's comment to him was, all right, I'll have another coach in here Monday that can. And I'm wondering if that lesson that he learned from Coach Bruce, who he admired and loved so much, and especially dealing with a young assistant coach who is Earl's grandson, if you think maybe there was any element of that in Urban going on with Zach Smith through the years.
I think that, when you're consumed by coaching and you have a philosophy, I think, and everybody knows how Coach Bruce was a big influence on Urban, and frankly, Coach Bruce was a big influence on me. I think that's certainly a possibility, and that's something that, somebody needs to ask Urban. It's very difficult for me to speculate and sit here and say what Urban knew and didn't know. I have no idea what he knew or didn't know. I just know that he deserves the opportunity to defend himself in this situation. And the other thing that needs to be addressed is the domestic abuse. It's just it's awful.
Yeah.
I think as a husband and as a father, and what would I do in that situation? I'm afraid that I would be the one that would be in custody right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that I'm not. There's no winners here. This is awful. It's awful for everybody. It's awful and most importantly, it's most awful for Courtney Smith, who allegedly had to endure this for all these years.
Yep. And I also think
that's the biggest crime out of this whole thing.
I also think
that's all true. It's I don't know the facts.
Mm-hmm.
I know what's out there, and so that's what I have to base an opinion on of what's out there now.
You
guys were saying, right, Matt? Because you changed your opinion from last week to this week. We can only go on what we know now, but we also have to have the patience, in like Stan was saying, to let's let the other side be heard. Would you agree with that, Stan?
Yeah, I would. As we talked about it, there's two sides to every story and the truth. And the only way to get to that is to let the process run its course. And it it bothers me when we have such knee-jerk reactions on both sides, whether you think she's lying or Zach's lying. Let's allow the process to work its course so we can get to the truth. Then we can make a determination.
Yeah, I just think what brought this whole thing to light and brings it home and makes it real and it's infuriating. And Matt, as you said, it's nauseating. Is the pictures?
Yeah,
it makes me sick to my stomach. And if that's the case and that's proven to be true, then there's justice needs to be had one way or another. Not really reflecting on Urban right now, but on if Zach did beat her up and hit her and everything he's accused of doing, it's domestic violence is to me one of the worst possible things are harming a woman. Being a husband and a father of daughters that's just my worst nightmare.
Chris,
my worst nightmare that would happen to one of my daughters.
No question about it. Chris, before I let you go, and this is going to sound like such a frivolous question, and I apologize to everybody in advance because, as you said, what's going on with Courtney Smith, what's going on with Zach Smith, what's going on with Urban Meyer, Gene Smith, and most importantly, like to me, there's two kids involved in this whole thing. I mean, that is, the heartbreaking and especially the family situation, the important stuff that is going on. But there is a football angle to all of this.
Sure.
This is happening 2 days before the start of training camp. And training camp, the first practice is coming up Friday. Is this situation a concern of yours going into training camp in that distraction for the players, for the program, and all of that stuff that is going to be hanging over the program as they get started this year?
Well, first of all, Matt, it's a necessary question that you're asking because that's the reality. You have to deal with that. The team, the coaches, the players have to deal with that because the season isn't going to be canceled because of this. And this is a very big issue that could have terrible, relatively speaking, of course, in football terms only, it can have terrible ramifications. I mean, this is where when there's a crisis in football terms only, and so that's the last time I'm going to use that disclaimer so everybody knows that I'm speaking only in football terms. Mm-hmm. This is when the leadership has to step up, and this is when if Coach, whatever, we'll see what happens with Coach Meyer. If he's coaching the team, then he's got to do his job of putting the focus on the team first. It's all about the team first. It's not about his personal situation. And there's no greater example of that when Earl Bruce got fired from Ohio State before the Michigan game and how he took everything off of him and put it and let us be focused on the team. So that's ironic, isn't it? But it's all about the team first. And I know that Urban is all about the team first and that he'll do his best to make sure that that's put into action. Then it's on the leaders of the team and whatever the fallout is, it is, but you do have to galvanize around each other. That's the only way to accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish as far as football goes.
Chris, got a quick one. Speaking of the team and the football side, from the administrative position, do you think there's a chance that they place Urban on administrative leave until there's an investigation done?
I think there's probably a decent chance of that with the information that we have now. Again, I can only go on. I don't know. Like the only thing I know is that I believe Urban Meyer until proven otherwise, because I've known the guy for 20 years. But if there's something that the university feels what's best for the university and best for the team, and if they decide to do that, I think that's certainly a possibility of happening. I absolutely think that's a possibility of happening. So we'll see.
Chris, thanks for checking in with us. I know it's an ugly, unpleasant story to talk about, but we appreciate you checking in with us. All right, bud?
Yeah, and let it be known that there's a lot of things at play here real quick, and I know you got to go, is that domestic violence is awful, and the number one priority is her. The other stuff will be worked out, but let's if anything comes of this, it's not that can never be tolerated about putting your hands on a female in anger ever, no matter what the situation is. And I think obviously that's the biggest lesson we could all learn, and hopefully we'll see how it plays out, and the truth will come out, and you adjust your life and move forward from wherever that truth may be.
Amen, Chris. Couldn't have said it better. Appreciate it very much, bud.